Welcome to the 613 Seconds podcast powered by the Jewish Life Network. Hi, I'm Aaron Friedman, your host, bringing you insightful, unscripted conversations with personalities connected to Baltimore's Jewish community, leaders, thinkers, and influencers who inspire and shape Jewish life. In just about 613 seconds, you'll gain wisdom, perspective, and connection because every second counts. Now, let's dive into this episode of 613 Seconds. Welcome to the 613 podcast powered by the Jewish Life Network. Today we have with us Mendel Mintz. For Baltimoreans, you're known as the husband of Miriam Fink, Alav Shalom, and you have had quite a journey. Hopefully today we'll learn a little bit about you and what shaped you. So welcome, and we're so happy that we're able to come in today for the conversation.
Thank you for having me, Aaron, and yes, a privilege.
It really is. The privilege is really mine, and excited to hear a little bit about your background. So let's really start with that. Where are you from? Where were you born?
So I'm from Crown Heights, Brooklyn, New York. Grew up in the, typical Chabad community and typical Chabad family. I'm very involved in the Chabad community, and went to yeshiva throughout most of my years in Brooklyn. Went to Alei Torah for most of my yeshiva years. Spent 2 years in New Haven, Connecticut as an older bacher, and then back to Crown Heights. She continued my studies in the Central Yeshiva at 770 in Crown Heights.
And it's a big family that you're part of?
Yeah, I am second of 8. Baruch Hashem, big family on both sides, very family all around the world, and very loving and a lot to look up to.
And what did your parents do growing up?
My parents ran an organization called JLI, Jewish Learning Institute, where they create curriculums and programming for Chabad Shluchim around the world. It's a big organization. They have, I think there's over 1,000 centers, Chabad houses throughout the United States and the world over, that teach their curriculum and offer their programming to their communities.
Got it. And you, before you actually met Miriam and moved to Baltimore, what did you do? Were you just in school for the entire time? Did you have any other jobs, or what was your...
I would say I was, Chabad system, you're a bacher in yeshiva till you get married. I did get involved in many activities, Chabad activities. I've done, many different events in Crown Heights. What's most notable probably here, what people would be familiar with, is I helped run the Simchas B'Sheva in Crown Heights for 4 or 5 years. And yeah, I've done many different, was involved in different events, and then also archival work. Worked on putting out different pictures and videos and all different kinds of, again, Chabad media of the Rebbe and all different kinds of things, apps, all different kinds of Chabad things.
So does your interest really lie in those types of areas, and history and learning? And
I would say I'm someone that likes getting things done. It happened to be that whether it was an event that had to happen, and I felt the need that, we have to do something, whatever it was. So I learned the skills of, ran events we had over 10,000 people at some of the events, closed off Eastern Parkway, and many other things in Crown Heights, and whatever that entailed. If it entailed fundraising, I fundraised. If it entailed, maintaining the relationships, the liaison with the NYPD and the mayor's office. I've done that, and whatever's needed. So that's what,
So you have a vast skill set, lots of abilities to be able to just coordinate and run things.
Yeah, make things happen, and sometimes just zoom out and see how, many people just get stuck in the issues. I try finding the solutions and seeing the bigger picture, how big things could happen. And Baruch Hashem, I was blessed with big, tremendous atzlacha.
So on the path that you were on, so how did those experiences really prepare you for your next stage in life?
It's an interesting question. As a Bahar, I never pictured myself living here in Baltimore, and meeting Miriam. If I could have pictured myself, I would have never imagined myself today. But it definitely gave me the tools to adapt, wherever. Not just adapt. Adapt is like you're being on defense, but to turn over wherever a person is, and yeah.
Was there a person that maybe even inspired you in your younger years that said, okay, I could do anything?
So I was born a year after the Rebbe passed away. My name is after the Rebbe, Mendel. Even though I never met the Rebbe, obviously, I would say that I was very inspired as a Bacher to do, and till today, that there's really nothing impossible. And we all Yidden really have the infinity. We have the Hashem inside of us, and the Shama, that there's really nothing unstoppable. And that, I would think, definitely came from as an inspiration from the Rebbe and his Sichas.
So the name Mendel is significant to you in particular.
Yeah.
That goes a long way. So that kind of goes through a little bit of a brief history of where you're from and who you are. You met Miriam. How many years ago did you meet Miriam, and how did you meet her?
I met Miriam over 3.5 years ago. We met through a shotgun. Not such an exciting story. There was before that, a couple years earlier, Miriam has an aunt that was one night in Brooklyn, and she saw me and a friend going down Kingston Avenue, and she saw us from afar, and she ended up chasing us 2.5 blocks, and she just asked for directions just to start conversation. And while she was asking directions, she spoke to my friend who was with me, and right away she said she saw it in me that I was going to be the one to marry her niece Miriam. But I didn't know at the time that ended the story, and I only knew about Miriam once the shotgun brought it up a couple of years later.
So what was your first impression of Miriam?
I think Miriam's greatness was in her normalcy. I remember the first words after I came home from the first date, saying that she's just so normal. Many people who would have been in Miriam's shoes would have wanted to be the most inspirational figure, and she didn't. She just wanted to be normal. And I think that itself is what inspired so many people.
So you connected with that. You connected with let's just live our lives normally.
Yeah, no, we're here. We have to take advantage of every second that we're here. And yeah, just the fact she was so normal and caring like any person would be.
So obviously for her to grow up like that, she must have grown up in a special home.
Yeah, my in-laws are very special people, and I think they really, both my in-laws and my parents both raised both of us like regular, normal people, having to do things like, getting through life and figuring out life like everybody would.
What would you highlight as something just that was, specifically special about her? Everybody knew that she was incredible with children, and she really built her reputation around children. Would you say that that's what made her, and kind of defined her?
I think Miriam went above and beyond when it came to education, on children. She, it really took over her life. It's who she was. At the time, she wasn't married until we got married, and her working in TA was really, really her life, and she saw it as her tafkid and gave it her all. I think I remember when we were engaged, she was mailing out wedding invitations, so she sent wedding invitations to all of her students, but she included a handwritten note to each one of her students. I think that really articulates the care she had. She wanted them to feel special and feel that they're not just invited, but the mother is getting married. And yeah, she really...
Would you say her care was really what made her effective as a teacher and what helped her connect with her
I think
students?
her care was the number one thing. I think another thing was, and she mentioned this, how she had, her own share of challenges, but she didn't have learning disabilities. She saw it, that just like she needed to adapt in certain areas, so other students might need to adapt in other areas. And that's why the mission was personal to her, making whatever it is adaptable, whether it's, she needed a stool to get somewhere and someone else needed a game to learn something.
So I guess through that, because you also had, seemed to have some of these same attributes, is that what connected the two of you?
I wouldn't say that our challenges per se connected us. I think our perspective on life. Sometimes when you don't look at the world, you don't just flow through the world, and you have to, when there's a depth to the world, and you have to, every single day is a, I'm not going to say challenge, but it's every day we're both finding solutions, and just that outlook on the world, that the world, though the world could be challenging, we're not going to look at the world as a challenge, and we're going to take the world head on and transform the world. I think that outlook really is a very shared value that we had.
Was there maybe a particular moment that maybe captures her attitude or the way that she faced the world? Is there something maybe you could highlight? Whether it's a story or whether it's just something about her that just defines who she was.
So I remember my parents once had a guest staying over in Brooklyn, and we came over for Shabbos, and that guest was going through an illness, and they had to amputate one of her legs, and she was an older individual, and she was coping with the fact that she only had one leg, and it was hard for her. And at some point, over the Shabbos, she asked Miriam, I need to ask you something that's been in my heart for a long time. And she wanted to ask that, how do you deal with people staring at you? And Miriam looked at her and said, listen, I only know this from Miriam told me about the story after, and she said, but she looked at her and said, listen, we're never going to be able to change the way people act and are. It's natural that some people are different. They're going to be looked at, and we're never going to change that. We have to muster up the courage, and Hashem gives every one of us the kayach to overcome that, and just put one, continue going day to day. And at the end of that visit, this woman told Mary, you have no idea how much your words changed my outlook. And I think that really explains Miriam's, putting one foot in front of the other.
Did she view herself as an inspirational figure?
She hated being called an inspiration.
Yeah.
She was just doing what anyone else would have done, the way she would say. She was doing just what anyone else would have done if they, like, what was the alternative? She of course, she was born the way she was born, and definitely she didn't identify by her challenges. She identified as a special educator, as an aunt, as a sister, as a friend. Her height was like, some people wear glasses, some people don't wear glasses. When was the last time people thought if they put on their glasses, like, it's just a natural part of the way we were and are, and yeah, it's definitely not who she was. She never identified by her challenge, and therefore hated when people found her to be inspiring, because she just tried to be. Obviously, she performed well enough. She touched the lives of hundreds, but she hated to be called that inspiration.
So the marriage, I'm sure, was also just normal, just the regular marriage.
Yeah, she was. That gave her the strength, because it wasn't easy. Miriam was in shidduchim for 9 years, and especially in the frum world, it's particularly in shidduchim when someone with a disability could be. It's more noticeable on their end. Throughout both Miriam and myself went to regular schools and yeshivas, and throughout childhood, teenagehood, and went to seminary for 2 years. It wasn't, her disability wasn't what defined her at all. It was only by shidduchim that other people defined her that way, and yeah, but she was confident, and she was, I think, her work in TA really helped her at that time, give her the sense of purpose, and she knew whatever Hashem has her way, she was gonna take.
Very interesting. So you mentioned you were married for
just over 2 years.
Over 2 years, and that 2 years ended abruptly.
So first, those 2 years were the best 2 years of both of our lives, and it was almost as if the Hashem consolidated a shalom bayis of an entire lifetime into just 2 years. It was really unbelievable. I mean, at the time we noticed that it was more. We didn't think it would end at all, never mind that quickly, but it was 2 years that were literally higher than this world. You taking both of us that have this outlook on the world, and putting us together, really nothing stopped us. Those 2 years we traveled, I think it was 6-7 countries. We were all over Baruch Hashem. We really lived to the fullest of those 2 years, both in our own lives and continued to grow. And I'll tell you something about those 2 years, that I grew up in a Chabad community, and while I was very active in the community, I didn't. You're in one community, and that's where that's where your exposure sort of is. What Miriam brought to me was, zooming out and seeing how much bigger the world is, and in those 2 years, the things that we accomplished together. We started together, and it was really Miriam putting the knowledge and everything into me. The exposure and guidance was the Nashi. Just giving an example, this is happening actually in New York for the 3rd year now. That was something. Nashi's a concert with over 3,000 people last year. That was something that Miriam, just for an example, she guided me and said, we don't only need to focus on the Chabad community. There were many countless of activities that she opened my eyes to, and we both did together. I think one of the ultimate of that was going to be that we were about to move on shlichus. Shlichus isn't just in Chabad. Couples don't only move to tourist destinations; they're really all over the world. And I know from people encounter Chabad shluchim when they go on vacation, but they're really, in the state of Maryland alone, there's over 50 shluchim. So because there's, I don't know the exact number, but it's a few 100,000 secular Jews, not Shemer Terrorists, that are living in Maryland. So Miriam and I found a place that made sense, that we were going to start our own Chabad house about 45 minutes from here, and that's Bernie. And it was the day before Miriam's procedure, which we'll get to in a second, that we signed and sealed the arrangements for our shlichus.
In Pasadena, on Bernie.
we already had Bahram going there for Purim, Pesach last year. At this point, it's 2 years ago. And yeah, we had, there were a few hundred Jews, believe it or not, that lived there.
Wow, never guessed that.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So you mentioned she went in for a procedure.
So Miriam's entire life, she looked forward to raising a family, having children, and before she was married, and while she was married, her children were her students. But she also wanted to have, we both wanted to have an actual, raise a real family. We were doing IVF because we didn't want to have our children to have our conditions. And as generally, it's obviously a very safe procedure, but everything has risks, and the unthinkable happened where Miriam passed away as a result a couple days later. And it really went from, the highlight of our lives, about to raise a family and about to really start life. Literally, leaving the hospital without Miriam. It was something that I'm still swallowing to this day.
It's unbelievable, and yet you carry on, you push forward, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the fact that Miriam has inspired you. So what are some of those ways that Miriam has inspired you? What are the things that you took out of the short but so, marriage that was so impactful? What are some of those things that maybe you pulled out from there?
So every day is a battle. It's not easy. I would say that Miriam changed me. I'm a different person today. And there was no question that because of all our deep conversations, that each night for 2 years really practicing me is like, the Maktim Yafua Lamaka for a time without Miriam. And like I mentioned earlier about Miriam, there's really no alternative. We're here. Of course, you could always there's always the option of falling into depression and not putting one foot in front of the other, and at times it's tempting, but the alternative is much more rewarding, and I think that's what Miriam would have pushed me to do, and that's why we're really here. There's no simple answer. It's not one thing that just pushes you forward. It's just very practical. Like what is the alternative?
And I guess one of the ways that you decided to commemorate her legacy is through building Miriam's library.
Yeah.
So it's a project that's going to be going up in Baltimore in the near future. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Miriam's library is not a memorial. It won't just memorialize Miriam. Miriam's library will be Miriam's life, her legacy. This week's parsha is Parshas Chayei Sarah, and the question is asked, Chayei Sarah. The parsha is called the life of Sarah right in the beginning of the parsha. Sarah passes away. Why are we calling it the life of Sarah, not the death of Sarah? But in reality, what's life? Life is the legacy that continues on after a person passes and leaves this world. And that's precisely where Miriam's library is going to be. Miriam's library is going to be a place where her legacy and her cure for every student will continue to strive, and every student will have the help and outlet that they need to be the best person they can each be.
So what are some of the features of this library?
The library is not just a library. It'll be a all-purpose, there'll be after-school programming, there'll be special ed tutoring. We're looking into options of a resource room for teachers. There'll be a real center where families can come after school on Sundays and have the tools they need to, not just tools they need, but also the outlets that they could all benefit from outside extracurricular of the typical school day.
So you're building it, where's this building going to be?
So it sounds, it's unbelievable that I could even say this, that we're closing Baruch Hashem in less than a month. On December 3rd, we're scheduled to close on 201 Milford Mill Road. It's a 14,000 square foot building where it's, the still surreal, where we will, the library will begin on the second floor with tremendous potential and growth to take over the whole building and even more. And we're in contract and it's really, really happening.
You have quite a vision. It's not just a little room with some books in it. It's well beyond that.
It's gonna be a center that will change the way Baltimore education is.
And how could people participate in perpetuating that legacy and contributing?
So we're gonna be having a crowdfunding campaign going on next week.
What dates?
And November 18th to 20th.
Okay.
Baruch Hashem, a big part of the money is already raised, and we're almost there. We just need to raise the final amount to help us get over the top. And, everybody contributing as much as they're able to, even if it's over time, committing to whatever number they're able to. It's a one-time campaign, it's a capital campaign, purchasing the building. And, this building, the way it's set up now, is that the income from the first floor tenants will help offset and cover the operations of the library. So it's sort of like an endowment. If everyone, essentially, if someone contributes, let's say $5,000, even if it's over time, over a couple of years, that $5,000 will help contribute. It will be like a self-made endowment forever and ever to the center.
So if Miriam would walk through the doors of this library when it's all built and looks beautiful and is accomplishing to the level that you're hoping it will, what do you want her reaction to be?
I think she would smile, be proud, and she would have been the best director of this center. And I'm sure she is.
Absolutely. Any final words just to the audience that maybe you could share, either about the center, words of inspiration, just something that we could just kind of close this meaningful conversation and maybe give words of hope?
I really thank you for the community for trusting me in doing this and welcoming me. Still here, I'm still here. Still, even though Miriam passed away and I have so much of my life in Crown Heights, but I found a whole new life here in Baltimore, and everybody's so welcoming and so looking forward, and I'm looking forward to the ribbon cutting. We don't just do groundbreakings, we do ribbon cuttings and open up Yazis Hashem, and this should only be a beginning.
Absolutely. I hope it should be a big success in for the Neshama of Miriam, and you should see a lot of success in this unbelievable project that you've undertaken.
Amen. And thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much, Mendel.